You step into the forest. You're not running. You're not carrying anything dangerous. You haven't made a sound in 20 minutes. And yet the moment you come within 100 yards of a deer, it vanishes. Not slowly, not cautiously. It disappears like something has been hunting it since before it was born. Because something has. We like to think of ourselves as soft, slow, harmless. The animal that built roads and coffee shops and Wi-Fi. The creature that gets winded on a mild hike and takes photos of sunsets. But from the perspective of every other living thing on this planet, you are not that. You never were. And the fear you just triggered in that deer isn't an overreaction. It's a memory. A memory so old it predates language, predates agriculture, predates everything you would recognize as human history. And once you understand what that memory is actually made of, you will never walk through a quiet forest the same way again. In 2016, a team of researchers at the University of Western Ontario ran an experiment that should have made the front page of every newspaper in the country. They set up hidden speakers in the wilderness and played audio recordings to the animals living there. Not the sound of wolves, not the sound of mountain lions, just humans. Ordinary conversation. The kind you hear at a checkout line or a bus stop. The results were not subtle. Mountain lions fled at more than twice the rate they fled from other large predators. Bobcats, deer, skunks, possums, all of them scattered faster and harder from two people talking than from anything else the researchers tested. And here is the detail that should stop you cold. Even apex predators ran. Animals with no natural enemies in their entire ecosystem still responded to human voices with the same panic they would reserve for mortal threats. Because for hundreds of thousands of years, that's exactly what we were. This fear didn't begin last century. It didn't begin when Europeans reached new continents or when we invented firearms. According to paleoanthropologists, it began at least 2 million years ago, when early Homo species were already hunting large animals across the African savanna. Our ancestors were persistence hunters. They didn't have the speed of a cheetah or the strength of a bear. What they had was something far more disturbing to every other creature on the plains. They didn't stop. In the midday heat, when every other predator rested in the shade, early humans jogged, not fast, steadily, for hours, for an entire day if necessary, until the prey collapsed from heat exhaustion and they walked up and finished it. If you were a wildebeest 2 million years ago and you saw a bipedal figure at a medium pace in the distance, that image was not curious. It was catastrophic. The animals that treated it as curious didn't reproduce. The ones that fled immediately did. They passed that response to their offspring, who passed it to theirs, until what started as learned behavior became something much harder to dismantle. It became biology. But here's where it gets stranger. Because it isn't just prey animals that run from us. Mountain lions are apex predators. They kill mule deer, bighorn sheep, elk. Nothing hunts them. And yet the 2016 study found that mountain lions abandoned territory at the sound of recorded human conversation faster than at the sound of any other predator. The same pattern appeared in wolves, coyotes, and large birds of prey animals that sit at the absolute top of their local food chains. Researchers at the University of California, Santa Cruz named what they were seeing the human super predator effect. Their conclusion was stark. Humans are not feared simply as predators. We are feared as a category of threat that other predators have no cognitive framework to process. We hunted them too. We eliminated them from their habitats across centuries. We killed them near settlements for reasons they couldn't predict. And we did it in ways that followed no pattern they could ever learn to read, which turns out to be the most terrifying thing a predator can possibly be. Most predators are legible. A wolf hunts at dawn and dusk near prey corridors. A hawk circles open fields at midday. A crocodile waits at the water's edge. Prey animals have had millions of years to map these rhythms, and those rhythms are what keep them alive. Knowing where the wolf hunts means knowing where not to graze. Knowing when the hawk circles means knowing when to stay low. Pattern is survivable. But humans hunt in the morning and at night. We hunt alone and in groups of hundreds. We hunt with fire, with traps, with bows, with rifles, with helicopters. We hunt animals we eat, animals we fear, animals we don't eat and don't fear, animals that pose absolutely no threat to us at all. We hunt on every continent, in every climate, at every hour. There is no pattern. There is no safe time. There is no safe place. From the perspective of wildlife biology, we are not a predator. We are a variable. And when you cannot solve a variable, the only rational response is permanent maximum alert. Every moment, every day of your life, from birth to death. And that's only part of what they're responding to. In 2019, researchers at UC Santa Cruz published follow-up findings from a series of wildlife camera studies. They placed scent strips near cameras in mountain lion territory, some soaked in mountain lion urine, some in human sweat. The reduction in animal activity near the human scent strips was comparable to, and in some cases exceeded, the reduction near the lion urine. You carry a chemical signal that wildlife reads as danger before they ever see you. Before you make a sound, every synthetic compound in your laundry detergent, your soap, your food, your car, layers onto a baseline human odor that animals have been trained by evolution to treat as an alarm. You are announcing yourself to the forest from the moment you park your car. The animals know you're there before you've taken 10 steps on the trail. Now, consider what happens to an entire ecosystem when it's running this calculation constantly. In 1995, wolves were reintroduced to Yellowstone National Park after a 70-year absence. Ecologists expected predation to reduce the elk population. What they didn't expect was what the fear alone would do before a single additional kill. Elk stopped grazing in open valleys. They abandoned riverbanks. They moved differently, fed differently, clustered differently, all because a predator was back. The vegetation in those open valleys recovered within seasons. Riverbanks stabilized. Streams narrowed and deepened as root systems returned. Fish populations rebounded. Bird species that hadn't nested in the park for decades came back. All of it traced not to predation, but to the fear of predation. Fear alone restructured the entire ecosystem. Then, a 2018 study published in Science analyzed mammal behavior across 6 continents and found something that reframes everything you think you know about your presence in the natural world. Mammals worldwide had shifted dramatically toward nocturnal activity in areas with human presence. Not because their habitat was destroyed, not because their food was gone, simply because humans were around. The mere fact of a scent, our sounds, our movement patterns had rewired when wildlife across the entire planet decides to be awake. We rearranged the daily schedule of life on Earth, without ever touching it. There are animals that have stopped running. City pigeons that will die before they move out of your way. Crows that not only habituate to humans, but recognize individual faces and will recruit other crows to harass the specific people who wronged them across years, across neighborhoods, teaching their young which humans are dangerous. In protected reserves where hunting has been removed for decades, fish in marine sanctuaries actively swim toward divers, while fish in unprotected adjacent zones flee. Mountain gorillas in Rwanda's Volcanoes National Park, once impossible to approach without triggering full group panic, now tolerate researchers sitting within feet of their family units after years of careful, consistent, non-threatening habituation work. The fear can dissolve. It is not permanent, but it is the default, because the default was earned. Go back to the forest, back to the deer that froze and disappeared, back to the birds that exploded from the trees the moment you appeared on the path. You weren't a threat to any of them. You know that. You were eating a granola bar and looking at the light through the leaves. But they don't know that. And the reason they don't know that is because for a span of time so vast, it makes all of recorded human civilization look like an afterthought. Something that looked and smelled and moved exactly like you was the last thing millions of animals ever saw. The fear in that deer is not excessive. It is a survival calculation refined across 2 million years of accurate, well-documented data. You are, by every measurable standard in ecology, the most dangerous thing this planet has ever produced. More versatile than any predator that has ever lived. More persistent, more unpredictable. Present on every continent, operating at every hour, capable of killing anything, and documented having done exactly that on every landmass we have ever set foot on. The squirrel isn't wrong about you. It just doesn't know you specifically. And that distinction between what you are capable of and what you choose is the only space where a different world becomes possible. The question was never whether animals should be afraid of us. The question is whether we're going to keep giving them reason to be.